Hi, this is David at Mash IT, and this is a laptop I've been really looking forward to. I've always been a big fan of Alienware tiny gaming laptops ever since the days of the M11X. But it's been 5 years since Alienware have discontinued their 13-inch gaming laptop range in favour of just the 15-inch and 17-inch popular gaming laptops. But in the last couple of years, 14-inch gaming laptops have started to hit the scene again, with the ROG G14 and the Razer Blade 14. And both of these laptops are incredible gaming devices, utilising Ryzen's more efficient gaming CPUs to be able to put powerful components into these tiny chassis. So Alienware, not to be outdone, has thrown its hat into the ring with this slim and tiny Alienware X14 gaming laptop. But there's a difference. Alienware have been brave enough, or maybe crazy, to actually use a 45-watt 12th gen CPU in this tiny 14-inch chassis. Now you've got a choice of the Intel i5 12500H or the i7 12700H, along with an RTX 3050, 3050 Ti or 3060. So to review this unit, we wanted to get the top spec components and really put its paces. So the test unit here is the i7 12700H and the RTX 3060 GPU. Now picking this thing up screams build quality. It's like a shrunken X15, but still hefty, weighing in at 1.8 kilograms or 4 pounds, which is still quite a lot for a little 14-inch laptop. And it feels very solid when you're moving it around. There's no creak and there's no flex. It's just a very well built 14-inch laptop. We have the usual lunar light outer and dark side inner, just like on the bigger X15 and X17 ranges. And like its bigger brothers, it has all of its ports on the back of the machine, with the added twist of even the power jack and the headset have been moved to the back as well. So there's literally nothing on either side of this machine, apart from a little bit of venting. Having all of the ports on the back of the machine does keep the laptop very clean and clutter-free. But I must admit, it does make a bit of a pain if you're regularly plugging things in and out of your laptop. And you may also notice that gone is the dedicated power jack, and instead we've got USB-C charging with this laptop. And this is something that I really appreciate on a slim and light gaming laptop. Now the range of ports are pretty good for a 14-inch. We've got a USB-C port with power delivery. We've got a headset jack, an HDMI 2.1, a USB Type-C, a micro SD card slot, and 2 Thunderbolt 4 with power delivery. Now you may have noticed, being a slim and light, we don't get an RJ45 or Ethernet port, but Dell do kindly include one in the box, and you'll see that we've got a USB-C to Ethernet, so that is quite handy if you are using it as a dedicated gaming machine. Now whilst I'm getting the contents of the box out, we also have the 135 watt USB-C charger, and this is just the same charger that they have for their XPS range of laptops. So the one good thing about that is they're very easy to pick more of these up if you want one in the office and maybe one in your bag. Always quite handy. Now if you're a fan of the X series' RGB lighting, you're going to be a bit disappointed with this model. Gone is the RGB Tron ring, and they've also removed the lit alien head power button on the laptop. And having spoken to the Alienware engineering team, they've advised me that they've done that to keep this laptop absolutely as thin as possible, trying to create a laptop that provides excellent day-to-day working and battery life, because they're going after a completely different user base with this model than they are with the X15 and X17 range of laptops. We do still have a single zone RGB keyboard, but unfortunately, as per usual Alienware, the secondary function is not backlit. And on the back of the laptop, the alien head does still light up in RGB, so you choose the colour that you wish. Now opening the laptop is an incredibly satisfying experience. Now Dell did show that they have actually created a whole new hinge system for this slim and light laptop to actually make it this slim at the rear of the laptop. Now this isn't something I would normally even be bothered about, but having used this laptop and played around, the screen is so satisfying with how well and how smoothly it glides open and closed, yet retaining a tight hinge and no wobble when you've got this laptop on your lap, that I feel they've done a really good job that is actually worth mentioning. Now the deck is the usual soft touch material that feels nice and luxurious, but it will pick up fingerprints, so you will need to be cleaning that on occasion. And being a 14-inch laptop and having so much venting above the machine, you don't have a great deal of distance for this palm rest. So if you are typing or using this for some gaming, you'll find your palms probably won't fit completely on the palm rest. But having done plenty of gaming on this laptop, this wasn't something that bothered me, and sort of my palms sort of sat on the edge of the machine. This also means that we're going to have quite a small touchpad with this model. And although it is small, it glides nicely, the gestures work well, and it's a really pleasant touchpad. But as always with a gaming laptop, I'm sure that most people are going to be using a mouse 90% of the time. Now the keyboard feels great, just like the bigger X15 and X17 range. It's got the same layout as those keyboards, but there's slightly less travel and it's a slightly smaller keyboard. Now, the biggest bugbear from those X15 and X17 has been carried over to this model as well, and that is where they've crushed the cursor keys into this keyboard. And when you start typing with this machine, it will take you a while to get used to it, because sometimes you're going to be hitting the up cursor rather than the shift. And that's something that did annoy me at first, but I did get used to it. Now, the speakers in this laptop are pretty poor. They feel almost like an afterthought, and they sound like this. X14 sound test at 50% volume. Now 80%. So there we go, average at best. Now, I've got no idea why manufacturers think that anybody that's buying a gaming laptop is going to be not interested at all in the speakers, because the majority of gaming laptops sound terrible. If you put these speakers in a MacBook, there'd be an absolute outcry. So why is it when we're spending this much money on a gaming laptop, we have to put up with this awful sound system? But moving up to the screen, I've soon forgot about the speakers. This is only a 1080p panel, but it's actually perfect at 14 inches. It's a 1920 by 1080p FHD screen. It's got 400 nits of brightness, and it's incredibly vivid and colours really pop. It's also 144Hz with low response times, making gaming an absolute joy. But if I was going to be gaming for a long time on this 14-inch screen, I'd probably want to go and plug in a large display, because 14 inches is quite a cramped sort of small size to be gaming for long sessions. The webcam is average. Looks like this. And this is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the Alienware X14 gaming laptop. But we do also get Windows Hello facial recognition, and it's always my favourite way of logging into Windows. This has worked accurately and very responsively, and it's a really neat feature on all of the Alienware X series range. Before we look at the performance, let's quickly look inside. And as you'd expect from a tiny laptop, there's not much you can actually change. Just the Gen 4 M.2 SSD and the Wi-Fi card. The DDR5 RAM is soldered on. You have a choice when you configure it to either 16GB or 32GB, so make sure you choose the amount you need when you buy the laptop. We also get a vapor chamber cooler and Element 31 thermal compound if you choose the higher spec models. And this smaller 14-inch model only gets 2 cooling fans, unlike the X15 and the X17. But despite only having these 2 fans and being so much smaller than the X15 and X17, the cooling solution still does an incredibly good job. They're managing to cool the 12700H CPU in here, which is an incredibly hot running CPU. Now, it does perform a little bit less than the X15, but it's still quite a feat considering how small this laptop is. And the CPU in here can run over 65 watts when you're actually utilising full load on the system. But with regards to the GPU, this is an area that Dell has played it quite conservatively. This maxes out with an RTX 3060 of only 75 watts. Now, they did give it an NVIDIA G-Sync and Advanced Optimus, which is nice, so you can actually just turn it to dedicated NVIDIA and get the most performance out of this. But 75 watts is quite low compared to the Razer Blade's 100 watts 3070 or 3080. So the Razer Blade 14 may actually make a better device if you're buying this just for gaming. Now, I discussed this with the Alienware engineering team because I was concerned that obviously the Razer Blade 14 being a much more powerful GPU is actually going to sway certain users away from their Alienware X14. But when they designed this unit, they wanted not just a gaming laptop, but a powerful all-round mobile workstation. And by putting that 12th gen CPU, they've done something that no one else has done in this 14-inch form factor. So I can kind of get where they're coming from here. They wanted a laptop that's incredibly powerful on the CPU, as well as still being pretty strong in the GPU. And when I think about it, with only a 1080p resolution, the 75 watt 3060 can still cope very well, and you get some solid gameplay on this system. And that 12700H CPU is such a powerful CPU that actually then makes it a great mobile workstation, not just a gaming laptop. The overall gaming experience on this laptop has been an absolute joy. Now, I wouldn't personally normally pick a 14-inch gaming laptop, but having used this for the last couple of weeks, it's been incredible just being able to just pick this thing up, wander over, and doing a bit of mobile gaming over on the sofa or over on a table, because it's just so easy to cart around, something that I don't often do with my 17-inch gaming laptops. But with all this power inside this laptop, there's going to be some concessions, and in this case, it has to be fan noise. This laptop gets very loud, and not only does it get very loud, the fans do have a bit of a whine because they're very thin fans. And not only is it doing this during gaming, I found if I'm doing some sort of heavy work or installing programs, the fans are ramping up. It's something that doesn't happen on its bigger X15 or X17 range. So this is something you need to consider if you're looking at this X14 laptop. Now, if you're gaming and you've got a headset on, this isn't going to bother you at all. At full load, it's only about 50 odd decibels, so very similar in actual decibels to the X15, X17. It's just the sound of the fans, especially if you're using this for maybe video editing or 3D modeling or even a bit of development. It's a great machine for that, but you are going to hear the fans spinning up doing those tasks. Now, there are profiles available in Alienware Command Center that are supposed to help with the sort of the heat management, but I found them pretty useless so far, to be honest. If you put it in quiet mode, it does keep it quieter, but it throttles the CPU down to 15 watts, making it pretty much useless for anything at that speed. You might as well just buy yourself an Ultrabook. And the balance, the performance, and the max fan speeds all pretty much do the same. As soon as you start using this machine heavily, it whacks itself up to max fans anyway. So in my experience, I think Dell need to go back to the drawing boards with their profiles via a BIOS update and give us a better range in those profiles themselves. Now, usually I would just control it all myself in throttle stop and undervolt it and lock the multipliers at what I want to keep it to the sort of temperatures or the actual speed that I want. But unfortunately with this 12 series, they're completely locked out, so you can't do anything with it. And that's a real shame this year. But fortunately, the external heat is well controlled, and the keyboard and the palm rest don't get hot when you're gaming, even for extended periods. And this is something that I find very important. There's nothing worse than having a gaming laptop where you're actually getting a toasty hand or a sweaty palm. I absolutely hate that, and I've had some old razor blades in the past and ended up selling them just because I hated how hot they got on the keyboards and palm rests. This stays very cool to the touch, and that's something I do appreciate. So being such a small and mobile laptop, let's take a look at the battery life. And streaming this over Wi-Fi, watching some YouTube at 200 nits of brightness through the laptop speakers, we were getting just over 6 hours of battery life. Now this is pretty good for this 12th gen range of CPUs because all the laptops we've tested so far has had pretty poor battery life. But if you compare this to some Ryzen laptops, which are getting over 10 hours of battery life, it doesn't look great. But battery life aside, these 12th gen chips are incredibly snappy on battery. So although they don't last as long as the Ryzen laptops, it's much more responsive when you are using them on battery, and that's something that is quite important to me. And also, being that it's a USB-C laptop, you can either use a dock or a monitor with power delivery. You could also use someone else's MacBook Pro charger and keep this laptop going. But if it's less than 100 watts, it will throttle the laptop back because obviously, as you could imagine, this CPU and a 75 watt GPU is going to use more than most USB-C chargers can handle. Well, that leads me to the conclusion. And I do have to ask myself, who is this laptop for? Now, I've been using this laptop for 2 weeks as my daily driver, and I have to be honest, I've absolutely loved the experience. It makes an incredible machine that you can carry everywhere with you with a great amount of power, and you can do a lot of gaming on the go with this machine. This would be a great machine for development, video editing, 3D modeling, with some gaming on the side. But I do wonder though, if Alienware should have also considered Ryzen in this laptop to be able to boost the actual GPU performance further by having a more efficient CPU. But obviously, Alienware were looking for a different target audience with this laptop, and I can totally understand that why they're doing that, and it's nice that they're actually pushing the boundaries and doing something that nobody else has done. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this machine. Do you think this is worth buying over the slightly more expensive and more powerful Alienware X15? Or do you think maybe that the Ryzen versions of the Razer Blade 14 or the G14 are a better option than this X14? And lastly, thanks for watching.